First of all, my name is Alan Hofman. I'm the Latin American Eurasia Collaborations Director. I live in Jerusalem, and I work at the Israel Knowledge Authority, that is the National Agency of Innovation of Israel. As you know, Israel is the global leader in R&D investment as a percentage of the GDP. The last number we have is that we invest 4.5% of our GDP in R&D as a part of our economy. And in 2019, we see that we have several exits. It was almost a record. It was $21.7 billion of exits of Israeli tech companies. And also the fundraising of our ecosystem was also in a record year. We had $9.1 billion of capital raisings in our venture capital industry here in Israel in 2019. So what else is happening in the Israeli economy, on the Israeli ecosystem, that makes it one of the most powerful and promising ecosystem in the world? We see in the last 20 years an increased involvement of multinational corporations here in Israel, with about 380 R&D centers of multinational corporations here in Israel. The impact of those centers, those collaborations, and those R&D centers of multinational corporations here in Israel, it's huge. We see that 50% of the high-tech product or the R&D is done by those R&D centers. It's huge impact on the ecosystem. It creates a lot of ecosystems around those multinationals and creates new and different spin-offs that are results of their activities here in Israel. We have also a very, very interesting ecosystem where all the parts of the ecosystem are working together and are very important in the success of our ecosystem. The startups and the entrepreneurs, the multinational corporations, the growth companies, the government, the academia, the private funding, and the military. As you may know, Israel is a very, very successful ecosystem in the last 20 years. And we would like to share with you that by now, it's not only something that the government sees as an exit or as a successful story, also the private funding. In Israel, the 94% of all the investment in R&D is private. Only 5% is public. So the main question is, why should governments invest in R&D? Okay, so the Israeli case is very, very strange, where 95% is it's private, and 5% of the investment here in Israel in R&D is public. So why should the government invest in R&D? First of all, somebody has to take high-risk investments in early stage and lengthy ROI sectors, where the private sector doesn't invest and doesn't see a financial return, and maybe the government could see a potential for technology to get to the market and to create a big impact in the economy. Second, we have to invest and promote future tech waves that they are very, very far from market, and they need a lot of investment in early R&D stages. And third, the national infrastructures, which academia and industry are very important to success. So in 2015, the government, the Parliament of Israel votes the change in the R&D law and creates the Israel Knowledge Authority that started their activities in 2016. Before that, we had the Office of the Chief Scientist in the Ministry of Economy and Industry. So what is the main purpose or the mission of the Israel Innovation Authority, investing and promoting innovation to promote the sustainable and inclusive growth. First of all, we try to strengthen the innovation ecosystem, enhancing an economic impact, how the innovation creates an economic impact, and enabling emerging disruptive technologies. As I said before, investing and promoting the next tech waves and the infrastructure of the ecosystem, and for sure also the next technologies and how we can create and produce an economic impact. We complement the private funding. As I said before, 5% of all the investment in Israel is public. So we have to complement where the private funding doesn't invest. First of all, we invest in all the stages of innovation and R&D, and the future tech waves are the tech transfer and the infrastructure. Those sectors, we invest on them, and also where the market failures are very, very common, like in the entrepreneurs and startups, the SMEs, and also large companies. We invest in all sectors. We are agnostic. We don't believe that one sector is better than the other. We evaluate their quality and their impact, and we see how the public investment could solve the challenges of the market. When we invest in an entrepreneur or in a startup that are in a very early stage, or in an SME or the growth company, we're looking to invest in high-risk tech projects, because those are the most powerful, and they make the great impact in the economy and the future of the economy. We need to create new IP, new intellectual property, that sometimes the private funding is not so interested in it. They are looking for the return of their investment, but we need to see how the Israel Innovation Authority is looking to the next 5 or 10 years, how we remain in the peak of innovation, as we saw at the beginning of my presentation, that we invest 4.5% of our GDP in R&D. So how we remain in the peak of the innovation, and we are pulling up the rest of the economy. As I said at the beginning, the mission of the Israel Innovation Authority is not only investing in R&D or innovation. We see the innovation as a major key for an economic impact, to create and promoting a sustainable and inclusive growth. Sustainable, that it's sustainable also with the world, with the environment, and it's sustainable also economically and socially, and inclusive not only socially but also geographically. Most of the investments and most of the developments are made in the major metropolitan in Israel and the center of the country. We need to reach also those communities that are underrepresented in the ecosystem, and also those regions that they don't have the same approach to the ecosystem and the innovation. So what are our principles of our innovation policy? That's very important. This is how we work. This is how we collaborate with our partners. This is how we invest. First of all, we are a national agency. We are a public organization. And based of that, we don't take any equity of all the companies that we invest on them. In 2019, we had more than 3,500 companies that we invest on them, and the 85% of them we support. We support up to 50% of the R&D cost. which means that we give conditional loans. We don't give free money. Like if a company receives money from us, they need to give us back if they have successful in their sales. They start to sell the product, and they have to give us back 3% of the revenue after they give us back the amount, the capital of the loan, and LIBOR interest. And as I said, 50% of the cost we invest, and the other 50% is coming from the company. Why? Because we believe that a sustainable company that wants to reach the market and wants to create a huge impact, they need to know how to fundraise their own funding. As I said, we are trying to enabling the market, not leading it. And that's why the Israeli Authority has a mission to promote the innovation as a sustainable and inclusive growth of the economy. So I think that I finished with my presentation. I would like to thank to all the organizers, and if you have any questions, I will be here, and you can reach me also through my email or Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Thank you very much.